The spaceship moved through the silent void of space, its metal body shaking gently as engines pushed it forward. Inside, the long silver corridors were empty. Only the hum of machines and faint blue lights filled the air. A human soldier walked slowly down the passage, his boots making soft echoes against the cold floor. His name was Marcus, a young man who had fought too many battles already, carrying scars on both his body and his heart. He had seen war tear apart planets. He had seen human soldiers fall, and he had seen alien warriors rise with fire in their eyes. But on this night, his mind was not on the war. It was on something else, something softer, something dangerous. Ahead of him walked an alien girl, tall, graceful, and unlike anyone he had ever seen before. Her skin glowed faintly like moonlight, smooth and shining as if made from crystal. Her hair, silver and flowing, moved with every step, as if the air itself followed her. She wore armor made of shining plates and dark leather straps, light enough for speed, strong enough for survival. Even in silence, she carried herself like a queen from another world. Marcus felt his chest tighten as he watched her walk ahead. He told himself not to stare, not to think, but his heart refused. She was not just an alien warrior. She was beautiful, painfully beautiful. He whispered under his breath, too soft for any human ear, "She's so beautiful. I wonder if she'd marry me." He thought his words had vanished into the air, lost forever in the humming of the ship. But he forgot one thing. Her people had sharper senses than humans. Their hearing was stronger, their instincts sharper. The alien girl stopped suddenly, her long braids swinging as she turned her head slightly. Marcus froze, his throat dry, his heart pounding like a war drum. Had she heard him? Or was it just a trick of his own fear? He prayed silently that she would keep walking, that she would ignore the weak sound of his whisper. But her steps slowed, and her glowing eyes looked back at him. They were not angry eyes, not sharp with rage, but curious, searching, deep. Marcus felt his knees weaken, his palms sweat, his whole body caught between shame and terror. He looked down, pretending to adjust the strap of his armor, hoping she would move on. But his mind burned with a single thought. She heard me. She heard everything. The corridor felt longer now, stretched by silence, the lights flickering softly as if they too waited for her response. She turned fully toward him, her silver hair falling over one shoulder, her eyes shining in the dim glow. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to speak, but she said nothing. Marcus raised his head slowly, meeting her gaze for the first time that night. His voice stuck in his throat, his breath caught halfway. Every soldier feared death, but in that moment Marcus feared something far greater: rejection, humiliation, exposure. For months he had fought beside her kind, always keeping distance, always careful. Humans and aliens were allies in battle, but trust was fragile, respect was cold, and love was forbidden. Yet here he was, whispering foolish human words in the empty corridor, words that could cost him his honor, maybe even his life. And now, she stood in front of him, silent, unreadable, beautiful beyond reason. His heart screamed at him to speak, to explain, but his voice betrayed him, leaving him quiet. The alien girl tilted her head, studying him the way a hunter studies a wounded animal. Not cruelly, not with scorn, but with deep, strange interest. Her eyes glowed brighter for a moment, as if reflecting a hidden light inside her. Marcus tried to breathe, tried to move, but his body refused. He felt trapped between his own words and her piercing gaze. It was as if the universe itself held its breath, waiting for her to break the silence. Finally, she turned back slowly, her steps soft, her braids swaying behind her. She did not speak, she did not accuse, but the silence she left was heavier than any word. Marcus leaned back against the cold wall, his chest rising and falling as if he had run a long distance. He closed his eyes, whispering to himself again, but this time with fear. She heard me. She heard everything. The soldier knew that nothing would be the same after this night. A single whisper had escaped his lips, and that whisper had reached the ears of someone who could change his life forever. Far away, the engines of the ship roared, carrying them toward another battle, another mission. But for Marcus, the war outside no longer mattered. The real war had already begun, the war inside his heart. And the alien girl who heard his whisper now held the power to decide his fate. The corridor stretched long and silent, but the silence was no longer empty. It was heavy, filled with the weight of his whispered words. The alien girl had stopped walking, her tall frame frozen under the dim blue lights, her silver braids still, her glowing eyes turned back at him. Marcus felt his body stiffen, his boots locked in place, his mind shouting at him to move, to escape, but his heart refused to obey. She had heard. He knew it now. There was no chance her sharp alien senses had missed the soft whisper he thought was safe. Her gaze locked onto him, and for the first time Marcus realized how different her eyes truly were. They were not only glowing, they were layered with shifting colors, shades of silver, blue, and violet, as if tiny stars lived inside them. When she looked at him, it was as if she saw not only his body, but his thoughts, his fear, his weakness. Her voice finally broke the silence, soft but steady. "Human, what did you mean by that?" The words cut through him sharper than any blade. He wanted to laugh, to deny, to pretend he had said nothing, but his throat burned, his tongue refused to lie. The question hung in the air, not just a question, but a challenge. Was he brave enough to stand by his own words? Or would he hide like a coward? Marcus lowered his head, his mind racing. She was not just another soldier. She was part of the alien warrior caste, respected, feared, untouchable. A human whispering about her beauty, about marriage, could be seen as insult, disrespect, even crime. But when he lifted his eyes again, her expression was not anger, not hatred. It was curiosity. Her glowing gaze carried no threat, but something far more dangerous: interest. Marcus's chest tightened, his heart pounding so hard it echoed in his ears. He thought of all the rules, all the warnings, how humans and aliens fought side by side, but never truly trusted each other. Yet here he was, standing before her, his secret laid bare, and she had not walked away. Instead, she waited, watching him closely, like a predator studying prey, or perhaps like a lonely soul seeking answers. His voice cracked, trembling against the silence. He tried again, forcing the words out. "I did not mean disrespect." She tilted her head slightly, her braids sliding over her shoulder. "Then what did you mean?" she asked again, slower this time. Her tone was not sharp, but it was firm, leaving him no path to escape. Marcus swallowed hard, his hands shaking against his armor straps. If he lied, she would know. If he told the truth, she might laugh, or worse, report him to her people. But something inside him, something deeper than fear, whispered back, "Speak." So he did, his voice low, trembling but honest. "I meant, you are beautiful, unlike anyone I have ever seen." And in that moment, I wondered what it would mean, if someone like you could ever marry someone like me. The words hung between them, heavy, burning, unstoppable. For a moment, her glowing eyes widened, the shifting colors flashing brighter. Marcus braced for laughter, for scorn, for punishment, but none came. Instead, silence stretched, longer, sharper, as if the very ship itself leaned in to listen. Her lips parted, but she did not speak. Her gaze softened, not weak, but thoughtful. She stepped closer, slow, controlled, every movement graceful like flowing water. Marcus's throat went dry, his breath shallow, his body tense as her presence filled the corridor. She stopped only a step away, close enough that he could see the faint glowing lines on her skin, like veins of light under crystal. Her voice dropped lower, almost like a whisper. "Humans always speak with such reckless honesty." Her words carried no mockery, but Marcus could not tell if it was praise or warning. He lowered his eyes, shame washing over him, but at the same time a strange relief spread in his chest. The secret was out. There was no taking it back, no hiding it anymore. He had faced death in battle, but this was different. This was the raw fear of being seen, truly seen. And for reasons he did not yet understand, she had not walked away. Instead, she studied him a moment longer, her glowing eyes flickering like distant stars. Then, without another word, she turned and continued walking down the corridor. Her steps soft, her braids swaying, her silence louder than any answer she could have given. Marcus stood frozen, his breath trapped, his mind spinning. What did her silence mean? Did she feel insulted? Did she feel pity? Or was there something else hidden in her quiet reaction? As the lights flickered above him, Marcus pressed his back to the cold wall. His heart still beat fast, but now it carried more than fear. It carried hope, confusion, and a dangerous spark of something he dared not name. He whispered again, softer this time. She heard me, but she didn't turn away. In that moment, Marcus knew one thing for certain. The story between him and the alien girl had only just begun. The silence of the ship pressed down on Marcus like a heavy cloak, but his heart refused to quiet. He replayed the moment again and again, the alien girl's glowing eyes, her calm but sharp voice, the way she had asked, "What did you mean by that?" He had answered honestly, words slipping out of him like arrows, words that no soldier was supposed to speak. Now there was no taking them back, no pretending it had not happened. As he walked back to his quarters, Marcus felt every step weigh heavier. He had fought in battles across ruined worlds. He had stood before fire and death, but nothing had made him tremble the way her silence had. The alien girl, whose name he dared not even whisper yet, had heard his secret, and instead of striking him down or reporting him, she had simply looked, studied him, then walked away. That was what terrified him the most. Not rejection, not anger, but the unknown. The next day, Marcus entered the training hall, a vast chamber filled with the clash of metal and the crack of energy weapons. Human soldiers practiced on one side, alien warriors trained on the other, their movements sharp, precise, beautiful, and deadly. He tried to blend in with the other humans, swinging his training blade, but his eyes betrayed him. They searched for her, and when they found her, his heart skipped again. She moved with grace that no human could match, her blade slicing the air like lightning, her armor gleaming under the lights. Other aliens watched her with respect, and even some fear. To them she was not just a warrior, she was something greater, a symbol of their pride. And here was Marcus, a simple human soldier, carrying a confession in his chest that burned like fire. As if sensing his eyes, she turned during her sparring and met his gaze. Her eyes did not flicker away. She held him with that same calm, curious stare. Marcus looked down quickly, pretending to adjust his blade, but the damage was done. She had seen him again, and he knew it. Later, when the training ended and the hall emptied, Marcus stayed behind. He sat alone on the metal bench, staring at the floor, whispering to himself, "What have I done?" But then he heard it, the sound of light footsteps, soft but certain. He looked up, and there she was, standing only a few steps away. Her presence filled the hall, silent but commanding. For a long moment, she said nothing, just studied him again with those glowing, shifting eyes. Finally, her voice came, low and steady. Humans speak too easily of things they do not understand. Marcus swallowed, his throat dry. "Maybe," he whispered back, "but I spoke the truth." Her eyes narrowed, but not with anger, more like testing, weighing his words. "And what truth was that?" she asked, her tone sharper. Marcus's hands trembled, but he forced himself to look at her, to meet the burning light of her gaze. "The truth," he said, his voice barely more than breath, "that I admire you, more than I should, more than I'm allowed to. And that one foolish part of me wondered if someone like you could ever choose someone like me." The words echoed in the empty chamber, louder than the clang of training blades, louder than the hum of engines. The air itself seemed to freeze, as if the ship held still to hear his confession. For a moment she did not move, her expression unreadable, her eyes glowing brighter as if stirred by an unseen storm inside her. Then, slowly, she stepped closer, her shadow falling across him. Marcus's breath caught, every nerve in his body on fire. She stood before him now, close enough that he could see faint patterns glowing under her skin, like rivers of light. Her voice dropped lower, quieter. "Do you know what you risk with those words, human?" He nodded, his voice shaking. "Yes, I know." Her stare lingered, heavy, unblinking, testing his courage. Finally, she turned her face slightly away, speaking almost to herself. "Humans are reckless, but perhaps their honesty is not weakness." Marcus blinked, his chest tightening with confusion, with hope, with fear. Before he could answer, she turned and walked away again, her braid shining like silver fire behind her. This time, though, her silence was not the same. There was something different in her steps, something slower, as if she carried not anger but thought. Marcus sat frozen, his confession echoing in his ears. He knew he had crossed a line that could not be undone. But for the first time, he also felt that maybe, just maybe, she did not hate him for it. The hall was empty, the ship quiet, but Marcus's heart thundered inside his chest. He whispered again to himself, "It's dangerous, but it's real." The dangerous truth was out, and now it was no longer just his secret. It was theirs. The days that followed were heavy with silence, but silence was never truly empty. For Marcus, every moment felt like walking on the edge of a blade, one step away from disaster. His confession was out in the open now, whispered in the empty training hall, words that could end his career, his honor, or even his life. Yet instead of punishment, instead of anger, the alien girl had left him with something far more dangerous. Her silence, her curiosity, her unspoken thoughts. He tried to return to routine, marching with the soldiers, training with his unit, keeping his eyes fixed forward. But his heart betrayed him every time she entered the room, every time her glowing eyes passed over him. The others did not notice at first. They were too busy with missions and drills. But whispers spread quickly on a ship where boredom was the enemy. Soon, soldiers spoke softly behind closed doors, humans muttering that Marcus's gaze lingered too long, aliens whispering that their warrior leader watched the human too closely. One night, Marcus sat in the mess hall, his food untouched, his thoughts drowning him. The laughter of the other soldiers faded into background noise. He felt her presence before he saw her, a shift in the air, a silence that pulled all his senses toward her. When he looked up, there she was, standing across the hall, silver hair shining under the dim lights, her eyes fixed only on him. Without a word, she turned and walked toward the exit, her steps calm, purposeful. Marcus hesitated, his chest pounding, his mind screaming at him to stay, but his body refused. He rose and followed, leaving his tray behind, ignoring the curious eyes that followed them both. The corridor outside was dim and empty, the ship's hum the only sound. She stood at the end of it, waiting, her figure outlined by the cold glow of the lights. When he reached her, she spoke first, her voice low, almost like a secret. "You are foolish, human, foolish to say such things, foolish to follow me now." Marcus swallowed hard, but his voice steadied. "Then why did you wait for me?" Her glowing eyes narrowed, but she did not turn away, "Because I want to understand." Those words struck deeper than any blade. She wanted to understand him, his heart, his reckless honesty. It was not approval, it was not rejection, but it was something neither of them could deny. And in that moment, Marcus realized they had stepped into forbidden ground. A bond was forming, fragile, dangerous, unstoppable. In secret, their meetings grew. At first it was only glances, small moments stolen between missions. But soon, they began speaking in quiet corners, in hidden rooms where the walls hummed, but no ears listened. She asked him about Earth, about oceans, about forests, about the strange thing humans called love. And Marcus told her everything, his words painting pictures of sunsets, of laughter, of holding someone close without fear. She listened with a still face, but her eyes told the truth. They glowed brighter, softer, whenever he spoke. For her people, love was not weakness, but it was rare, buried under duty, honor, survival. But here was a human, speaking of it freely, offering it recklessly, as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. And slowly, dangerously, she began to want it. But the ship was alive with rumors now. Humans whispered of betrayal, aliens muttered of dishonor. Their bond was no longer invisible. It was a shadow creeping across the walls. One mistake, one careless word, and both would face judgment. Still, neither of them pulled away, because the silence between them was louder than the warnings outside. One evening, as the engines roared and the stars stretched beyond the window glass, Marcus stood with her alone. Her braid brushed her shoulder as she turned, her eyes glowing with quiet conflict. "You risk everything for this," she said, her voice sharper than before. "Do you not fear what will happen when they discover?" Marcus stepped closer, his voice steady now. "I fear it every day, but I fear losing this more." Her lips parted, her eyes flickered with light, and for the first time, she did not turn away. Her silence was not heavy now. It was fragile, almost tender, and Marcus understood, without words, that she too was caught in the same forbidden fire. The bond between them was no longer just whispers in corridors. It was real, alive, dangerous. And both of them knew, when the truth came to light, the ship would no longer be the same. But neither cared, not anymore, because in the vast cold of space, they had found something warmer than any star. The ship no longer felt the same. Every corridor Marcus walked through seemed to carry whispers. Every room seemed to hold suspicious eyes. What had once been quiet curiosity among soldiers had grown into something sharper, something dangerous. The humans muttered that he was getting too close to the alien warrior. The aliens whispered that she allowed the human to stand too near. Marcus felt the walls closing in. He tried to hide his fear, but he could not hide his heart. Every stolen meeting, every quiet word, every glance between them became fuel for rumors. And in the dark corners of the ship, whispers became accusations. One night, alarms echoed through the corridors, red lights flashing against steel walls. Marcus rushed with his squad toward the command chamber, but when he entered, his blood froze. She was there, standing tall and proud, but not beside him, not in secret. She stood before the alien council, her people watching with sharp, glowing eyes. Beside them, human officers stood with cold faces, their gazes heavy on Marcus. The council chamber was vast, filled with the low hum of alien machines and the heavy breathing of soldiers who had gathered to witness. Marcus was pulled forward, his wrists bound with magnetic cuffs, his heart thundering in his chest. A voice rose from the alien elders, sharp and cutting. This human has broken boundaries. His words and actions threaten our alliance. Another voice, this time from a human officer, followed. He has shown weakness, compromised discipline, placed personal desires above duty. Marcus stood in the center, the weight of two worlds pressing down on him. He looked up and saw her watching, her face calm, but her eyes burning like storms. The alien elder turned toward her, their voice low but firm. And you, warrior, you allowed this bond to grow. You let the human dishonor you with his foolish words. The hall fell silent, all eyes on her, waiting for her response. Marcus wanted to shout, to protect her, to carry the blame alone, but his voice was trapped in his chest. She stood still, her silver braid resting against her shoulder, her armor gleaming under the red lights. Her eyes shifted, glowing brighter, and when she finally spoke, her words cut through the silence like a blade. This human spoke from his heart, she said, her voice calm but strong. His words were not insult, not deceit. They were truth. The chamber erupted in murmurs, shock rippling through both humans and aliens. The elders slammed their staff against the floor. Truth or not, such words break order, such bonds endanger unity. A human commander stepped forward, his tone harsh. Discipline must be enforced. Soldiers must not confuse personal feelings with duty. Marcus felt the anger in the room rising, like a storm ready to break. He forced himself to lift his head, his voice trembling but steady. If I must face judgment, then so be it. But know this, my words were never betrayal, they were only human. The chamber quieted for a moment, the weight of his voice echoing against steel walls. The alien girl stepped closer, placing herself between him and the council, her glowing eyes burning with defiance. If you punish him, she said firmly, then punish me as well, for I did not turn away from his words. The shock in the room deepened, soldiers shifting uneasily, whispers rising again. The alien elder's eyes narrowed, their voice cold. You risk everything for a human. Would you truly stand beside him even now? She did not blink, her voice strong. Yes. The silence that followed was heavy, dangerous, filled with the weight of rebellion. Marcus felt something stir inside him, courage he thought he had lost. He stepped forward despite his cuffs, his voice rising louder than before. I never wanted to cause division, never wanted to dishonor either side. But I will not take back what I said. She is beautiful, she is strong, and if it were possible, I would marry her. The words crashed into the chamber like thunder. The humans froze, the aliens stiffened, the entire council silenced. Marcus's heart pounded, expecting chains, exile, maybe even death. But instead, the alien girl stepped closer still, her hand brushing his shoulder as if shielding him. The room burned with tension, no decision made, no judgment passed. The humans demanded order, the aliens demanded honor. But between them stood one human and one alien, bound not by command, but by something forbidden, something undeniable. The test of loyalty had begun, and neither of them knew how it would end. The council chamber was drowning in silence, but beneath that silence was fire. Humans and aliens stood on opposite sides, their eyes locked on Marcus and the alien girl. The air was heavy with anger, suspicion, and the weight of laws that had been broken. Marcus stood in the center, his wrists still bound, but his spirit no longer chained. The human commander spoke first, his voice cold and sharp. This soldier has disgraced his uniform. He has placed personal desire above his duty. The alien elder's voice followed, deeper and heavier. And this warrior has allowed weakness into her heart, risking the strength of our people. Marcus's heart pounded as their voices clashed, demanding punishment, demanding separation. But before anyone could speak further, he raised his voice, trembling but clear. If this is disgrace, then I accept it. If this is weakness, then I accept it, because it is also truth. Gasps rippled across the chamber, but Marcus did not stop. He turned to the humans, his eyes burning. I have fought beside you, bled beside you. I have carried brothers from the battlefield, and I have given my life to the mission. Then he turned to the aliens, his voice steady. And I have stood beside your warriors, faced your enemies, and shown my loyalty. I have never betrayed you. He lifted his head higher. But if my heart speaks of her beauty, of my wish to marry her, then that does not make me a traitor. It makes me human. The alien girl stepped closer, her armor gleaming under the red lights. Her glowing eyes burned brighter than before, her voice rising like steel. And if I listen to him, if I do not turn away from his words, then that does not make me weak. It makes me honest. Her defiance echoed across the chamber, cutting through the walls like lightning. The council shifted uneasily, humans muttering among themselves, aliens glaring in silence. The elders slammed their staff against the floor, the sound ringing like thunder. You defy your people, warrior. The elder warned, their eyes glowing with authority. Would you throw away honor for the words of a human? She stood tall, unflinching, her silver braid falling against her shoulder. Honor is not blind obedience, she said firmly. It is standing by truth, even when it costs everything. The human commander turned on Marcus, fury in his eyes. You endanger all of us with your recklessness. You would bring chaos to this fragile alliance. Marcus raised his voice, strong now, no longer trembling. No, Commander, it is not chaos, it is hope. The word struck like a spark in dry air, dangerous, uncontrollable. He stepped forward, pulling against his cuffs, his voice louder, stronger. I will not hide anymore. I will say it here, before both humans and aliens. She is beautiful, and if she would allow it, I would marry her. The chamber fell silent, a silence so deep it was painful. Every eye stared at him, some filled with anger, some with disbelief, some with shock. The alien girl looked at him, her glowing eyes softer now, but also brighter, as if flames lived inside. Slowly, in front of everyone, she reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder. The gasp that followed was louder than any command. Her people froze, her warriors wide-eyed. The humans stiffened in disbelief. It was not only a gesture of support, it was a declaration. She was standing with him, not as a soldier, not as a commander, but as something more. The elder's voice cracked with rage. You break every law of our bond. You risk war between us. But the alien girl did not move her hand, her voice calm but cutting. Perhaps it is time for laws to change. Her words spread through the chamber like fire, shocking both sides. Marcus felt his heart surge with pride, with fear, with a dangerous kind of hope. The human commander shouted, "This is madness. This cannot be allowed." But Marcus's voice rose above his, steady and defiant. You can chain me, punish me, exile me, but you cannot erase what I feel. You cannot take away the truth of my heart. His words carried across the chamber, ringing louder than any accusation. And for the first time, neither side could answer. The chamber was divided, humans whispering, aliens arguing, leaders shouting. But in the center of it all, Marcus and the alien girl stood side by side, their bond unbroken, their defiance clear. The breaking point had come, and now the future of both sides hung in the balance. Would they be torn apart by law and fear, or would their courage force a new path? The chamber was no longer just a room of judgment. It had become a battlefield of silence and words. Humans stood stiff, their commanders demanding discipline, their soldiers torn between respect and fear. Aliens glared with glowing eyes, their elders shouting of honor, their warriors whispering of betrayal. But in the center of the storm, Marcus and the alien girl stood side by side, bound not by law but by something deeper. Her hand still rested on his shoulder, steady and unshaken, a small gesture but louder than any shout. It was defiance, it was choice, it was the birth of something forbidden. The elder's voice thundered. You cannot do this, warrior. To stand with a human is to abandon your blood, your oath, your people. But she raised her head, her glowing eyes bright as stars, and answered, I do not abandon them. I show them a new path. Marcus felt the weight of her words like fire in his chest. He stepped forward, pulling against his magnetic cuffs until his wrists ached, his voice rising. We fight the same battles, we bleed on the same ground, yet we are told our hearts must remain divided. Why? The chamber trembled with murmurs, but no one answered. He pressed on, his voice fierce. You fear love because it breaks your chains, because it cannot be controlled by rules or ranks. But love is not weakness, it is strength. For a moment, silence reigned again, heavy, suffocating. Then one of the younger alien warriors spoke from the crowd, his voice uncertain but loud enough. Perhaps, the human is right. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The elder turned with fury, but others began whispering too. On the human side, a soldier Marcus had fought beside muttered, He saved my life on the battlefield. If this is betrayal, then I would follow the same path. The walls of division were cracking, small but real. The elders slammed their staff again, their voice shaking with rage. This will not stand. We are not here to change the order of the universe for one human whisper. But the alien girl's voice rose higher, clear and unbreakable. It is not one whisper anymore. It is truth, and truth cannot be silenced. She stepped closer to Marcus, her braids shining like silver fire, her glowing eyes locked on his. Human, she said softly but firmly, you risked your honor for me. Will you still stand if I stand with you? Marcus's chest swelled, his voice steady now, stronger than ever. Yes, I will stand, no matter the cost. And then, in front of both humans and aliens, she took his hand in her own. It was not just touch, it was a declaration, a bond formed not in secret, but in the open light. The chamber gasped again, but neither of them let go. For Marcus, it was the moment his whisper became a vow. For her, it was the moment curiosity became choice. The human commander shouted again, his voice desperate now. This cannot be allowed. It will tear our alliance apart. But Marcus looked him in the eye, his voice calm but cutting. No, Commander, it might be the only thing that holds us together. The alien elder's rage burned like fire, but their words faltered, drowned by the murmurs of their own people. The unthinkable had happened. Doubt had entered their council. Hope had entered their silence. The ship hummed around them, the stars beyond the glass endless and cold. But in that chamber, warmth had been born, fragile but unshakable. Marcus knew the future would not be easy. They would face trials, anger, exile, maybe even war. But they would face it together, not as soldier and alien, but as something greater. The alien girl squeezed his hand, her glowing eyes soft now, carrying fire and gentleness at once. She whispered, low enough for only him to hear. Your whisper changed everything. Marcus's heart ached with relief, with pride, with love, and he whispered back, and you gave it meaning. The council could no longer stop what had begun. A human and an alien had broken the silence, had chosen a path forbidden. But in that forbidden path lay the seed of a new beginning. A future where one whisper of love could change not just two hearts, but two worlds.